Hello, hello. It's Elizabeth Busby here, the Director of Programs for the Theology of the Body Institute. Today, we are going to be talking about what true submission looks like in a relationship, but we're going to be talking about it, or we're going to be addressing the men in the room. Before I get started, please make sure you like and subscribe and click the notification bell so that you're aware of any other awesome videos that we put out, and make sure you stay to the end of the video because I'm giving you 3 practical tips for how to live out authentic masculinity. So what do I mean by submission? Well, I am talking about Ephesians chapter 5, verses 21 on through like 26 or 27. You can read it if you want, but basically the pertinent issue here, the pertinent verse that I'm going to be talking about is where it says, "Wives, be submissive to your husbands." Generations of Christians have taken this to mean that wives are meant to just do whatever their husband says. He is the boss, so he gets to call the shots, and he gets to tell her everything she needs to do, and she needs to ask him before he does anything. And honestly, I think that there are still some fundamentalist Christian circles that teach this. There are some Catholics who misunderstand this. There's a lot of thought out there about this today. I am going to challenge that kind of traditional understanding, traditional interpretation of this with what we understand, the Catholic Church understands this verse to actually mean. So I want to start, before I do that though, by saying that because so many men have abused this over the years, whether they've done it because church authority has told them that they can, or they've done it just because of some own twisted drive in their own heart, generations of men have truly used this to abuse the women in their lives. And so women began fighting back against that. And honestly, I think that the feminist movement, the original feminist movement back in the early 1900s, that came out of a desire to not be under the yoke of this verse, of this idea, of this bond of submission, if you will. The answer, though, to that abuse of men, even if they're using the Bible to do it, the answer to that abuse of men is not to emasculate the men or to masculate women. Is masculate a word? I don't know. To make women into men, to give them that kind of intense authority over men. The answer is to teach men how to be men. What was God's design for that complementarity of the sexes? What was God's design for masculinity? That is the answer to all of this confusion around this idea of submission and the idea of a submissive wife. So we can find out what it means to be a true man simply by looking at that word submission. When you actually break that word apart, sub is first and then mission. What does sub mean? Sub means under, like a submarine goes under the water. So if a woman is meant to be under the mission of her husband, what does that mean? We have to know what his mission is. And Paul tells us a few verses later what that mission is. He says, "Husbands, love your wives like Christ loved the church." And how did Christ love the church, gentlemen? He died for her. He literally poured himself out for love of her. He took all of the negative things that she was throwing at him, all of the hate, all of the anger, all of the everything, and he died for her. He took that on and then died for love of her. As products of this culture, men, you have probably been very emasculated by the hurt and wounded women, and the temptation may be to just double down even harder on the submission or on the hate or the anger or the whatever. But that's not the answer. What St. Paul is telling you to do is to die to yourself for her, to die for her. And then he is encouraging women, he's encouraging wives to allow him to die for her. Now, because of this pain that's happened, there's not a lot of trust. Generally speaking, there's not a lot of trust between women and men. And so women don't want to be that kind of vulnerable to allow a man to die for her. She wants to feel independent. She wants to feel like she can do everything herself. She wants to feel like she doesn't need a man. I can buy myself flowers. On an individual level, you will need to build the trust or work to build up that healthy spot, go against kind of that woundedness of the woman that you love, to show her that it is safe for her to let you die to yourself for her. And I think that once you have that posture, men, of I'm going to die to myself for my beloved, and in general, I'm going to die to myself for other women around me, that changes everything. Because as you begin to do that, she begins to be able to be open to receive it, and her beautiful femininity can blossom. And then it's not a negative thing to submit. Then being under that mission, allowing him to die for you, letting him, be the one to get up with the baby in the middle of the night, or letting him be the one to do the dishes, or whatever that ends up looking like in your family in any given moment, that becomes something that she's able to do, and she's able to grow in holiness in that way, as he is growing in holiness by dying to himself. So you guys know that I love practical tips. It's one of my favorite things that you can take something practical away from my videos. So I'm going to give you 3 practical tips, men, for how to go about reclaiming this authentic masculinity. So the first is to be a man of prayer. One of the cardinal sins in a man's life is pride. In all of humanity, but I think especially in the masculine heart, is pride. Like, I can do it myself. I don't need anybody else. I don't need God. I don't need whatever. When you pray, when you bend your knee before God, what you are communicating to yourself is, I am not God. It is an act of extreme humility to humble yourself before the God of the universe and say, you are God and I am not. Because if that's the case, then there are things that are demanded of me and my masculinity, and I can't just do whatever I want. I need to do what you're asking of me, Lord. So be a man of prayer. If you don't know what that looks like, go to confession later this week and start going to daily mass once a week and ask the Lord to teach you. Work to cultivate 10 minutes of personal prayer a day, and just allow the Lord to teach you what it means to be a man, because he is the ultimate man, Jesus Christ. The second thing I want to encourage you to do is find an outlet for all of that masculine energy. So the reality is testosterone operates in a body very different from estrogen and progesterone. And testosterone makes you need to be active, makes you need to do things with your body, to simplify it. Most men since the Industrial Revolution have spent their time sitting at a desk. They spend 40, 50, 60, 70 hours a week sitting at a desk, sitting in a car commuting. It's a very sedentary lifestyle. Whereas back in the day, there was a lot of literal hunting, hunting animals or waging battles against enemy tribes or whatever. There was tilling the land, which is a lot of physical labor. There was just a lot of physical outlets for your testosterone, and there aren't as many natural outlets in this day and age. So I'm going to encourage you to seek them out. Whether that looks like exercise, right? You develop a healthy posture towards exercise and you incorporate exercise in your life, whether that looks like sports, like rec leagues of sports that allow you to get some of that masculine energy out, whether that looks like taking up some sort of martial art like jujitsu or something like that, whatever that looks like for you, find an outlet for that masculine energy, because if you don't find an outlet for the masculine energy, it's going to get turned in on itself. And the 2 primary ways that masculine energy gets turned in on itself, honestly, is pornography and gaming. In gaming, men are able to engage in combat, which hits their, kind of triggers that masculine desire to fight and to conquer, but it's fake. It's not real. And so it thwarts that masculine energy, to be honest, and it sucks energy away from other ways you could be living that masculine genius. And also with pornography, of course, that takes that amazing gift that you men have been given to bring forth life into the world, all of that energy that is meant to go out of yourself, and it turns it back in on yourself. So these 2 things, the enemy has done a really good job of incorporating them into men's lives in a way that is almost idolatrous, and I want to really encourage you to fight against those. So if those take up a lot of energy in your life, the first thing you can do is work to eliminate pornography and put gaming in its proper context time-wise, and then use the rest of your energy to do other things like I mentioned earlier. And the last practical tip that I want to give you is look for ways to serve the vulnerable. So I don't necessarily include women in this. Women are vulnerable, but you are also vulnerable men, and you are able to serve each other. What I mean by the more vulnerable are children, the sick, the poor. Look for ways to go outside of yourself and give. Maybe you do a Big Brothers Big Sisters community group. Maybe you go work for Habitat for Humanity and you volunteer with them. Maybe you go read to sick children in the hospital. Maybe you, serve at a soup kitchen. There are so many ways that you can get outside of yourself and serve people who are more vulnerable, but that will also tap into your authentic masculine desire to protect and provide. So those are my 3 practical tips. Make sure you are a man of prayer, cultivate prayer in your life and that beautiful humility. Make sure that you have a healthy outlet for your authentic masculine energy, and make sure that you are serving those who are more vulnerable than you. If you are able to do that in your life, if in your immediate circle you are able to be an authentic man, you're not going to buy into the lie of the culture that your masculinity is meant to submit in the sense of pound it out of women and make her do everything you say. If you live authentic masculinity, it will allow the women around you to also live their authentic femininity, and it will encourage other men around you to do the same with their masculinity. So I am rooting for you. I think I say that a lot, but it's true. I want this for you. I want this for the world. I want this for the world that my kids are going to grow up in. And you can make a huge difference in your own life if you are willing to do this. So until next time, stay close to the heart of Jesus and be not afraid. Bye.